working with a simple concept of how to create the lines that take us beyond perspective, beyond shape, beyond form, into texture. How to create textures with pencil or ink lines, making sure you can select which type of pen and for which type of line, and have a little more consciousness of why I'm doing this, how I'm going to get in there and create that illusion that will make people go, wow, that looks exactly like what I would envision it. The variations of how some of these lines are broken down when we are talking about, as I said, sky, background sky, clouds, vegetation, trees, rock, clothing, not just skin, the person, but the clothing, the type of clothing. We could tell if it's leather or velvet. And it is amazing how you create that kind of illusion, that kind of texture difference with the same exact tool. One of the things I want you to really focus on for today as well is one of my biggest recommendations, which is, and I'm doing it right now, squinting as much as you can. And go ahead and try it. Because when we talk about simplifying the line, we begin by simplifying structure, and then the next thing would be the light. So notice how with the same exact application of lines, there's this beautiful contrast, not just the perspective in space of this subject, but the light, the way light is affecting it, the way the light and the shadows cast shadows and coarse shadows, everything is applied that really just gives us the full range of the illusion. And I want to consider, okay, where would I start? Which of the methods that we've worked on should I consider going with my blind contour? So should I just render and try to find the edges of the contour and be able to sketch my drawing starting from this point? That would be one option, of course. We've done that many, many times. Okay, so what I wanted you guys to just think for today, and this is not the main objective of today, I just wanted to present it to you. What I wanted you guys to begin to see is, imagine this, and I'm doing my best here to not trying to rush, but if I were to actually consider for a second what this structure would look in space in its most basic form, I might be forced to see it as something like this, which, if you guys can kind of tell, it would be that cube in space. And to make it a little bit easier, these lines, you kind of would not see them in the background because they're, you know, our back view and our side views. So you would have this, and this is what I'm just trying to get you guys to. Where would my starting point be? This, can I visualize this? And then from here, can I visualize, let me switch color. From this structure, which I can see this massive three-dimensional cube, can I visualize what happens inside of it? So I'm seeing, and again, this would go all the way through the back as a cylinder. And if you guys could see that, it would kind of follow in this way. So if I get rid of this, now I'm left with that. So if I can't see this first, this image that you're looking at right now as my first step, I would have to go one backwards, which would be the cube. And inside that cube, I need to be able to see this cylinder. And this has to happen before, way before I try or begin to do any of the details. And we know that, right? We always go from biggest to smallest, from simplest to more complex. And that's, of course, step number one. So when confronted with this, and I just want to show you a couple more that I did. So we had the cube, and then to that cube, we added, oops, sorry. To that cube, we added the cylinder. Then to that cylinder, we would add the verticals that begin to create that grid. So the next thing is you're looking at a page of lines, and I prepared a couple of them. And again, I want to how this sketchbook is turning out with our sky studies. And I started this one before because this is the original one for those of you who've been with us on all these trips from Venice to Paris to Santorini and then to London and now to Italy, to Rome. So developing this sketchbook and everything you do to put it together. And the nice idea of these series to be able to, at the end, look back and say, oh, wow, look at all this work and how it's coming together. This is one of those pages that I would love for you guys to introduce to your sketchbook. So here we have parallel grids. It's called a parallel hatch. This one's a vertical. This one's a parallel hatch. And if you notice, for example, here, where I kind of break the line and I could put them pretty evenly at the same distance, knowing that I could put them closer or wider from each other, right? That would create a different look. Here we have a horizontal pattern. And again, there's some break in those patterns in that hatch. This would be a diagonal. And again, I created a nice, just interesting look for this hatch here, where you have left to right, right to left, diagonals. And again, all of them in the same pattern, parallel hatch. And so I'm just gonna do a cross hatch. So what I was saying, even if I do a vertical line, what I wanna do is begin by doing a parallel. And again, the distance between these lines could be very close, almost touching each other, or a little bit wider, depending on the texture that you're trying to recreate. And you notice the difference. So what I did, vertical lines. With a cross hatch, what I want to do is find this single line that I did vertically. And what I want to do is just come across it as close as I can at an angle. Did you see that? So when I come across them, I want to maintain that angle. And automatically, I begin to see, okay, there's the pattern. And I also want to maintain the distance of the lines. You can actually play with that. So if my previous grid, and let's do one like that. If my previous grid was wider lines, again, vertical, what happens if I cross hatch it with just a tiny little angle, but these lines are way closer to each other. So it's not the same distance. All these variations, this is what makes this type of drawing so amazing, because every single one of you using the same technique, maybe even the same pen on the same paper, will create completely different patterns. I'm going to overlap this cross hatch just to give it that nice, rich shadow. A little bit of a zigzag again, maybe some scumbling, create that visual interest there. And now for the arch, I'm going to try to recreate that very tight brick line work in the perspective. More stippling and cross hatching. And with that, I am done with this side. So I'm going to place most of my focus, as we did on this side. As I move along, I'm going to do less and less detail. So I'm going to focus more, because there's so much information here. If I make this, it becomes one of those architectural drawings. So here I want to make a little more artistic rendering, more gestural. Maybe it would be nice to just go into some of that intuitive, stippling, scumbling, cross pattern, and a lot of focus on the values.